Join the conversation with the Morning Majlis, Pulse 95.
Big development that took place yesterday, and a military coup and detention of their democratically elected leader, and then also the democratically elected leader calls for protests. And what's going on in Myanmar as a country staged a coup? Senior politicians, including the Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi, was also in custody. But there's a lot of international
involvement,
condemnation. You could say they're not happy. United States comes straight out.
Right.
Yesterday, when we discussed this, we saw the U.S. Secretary of State only expressing alarm over the situation.
Now it's Biden.
Yeah. He's spoken up and said, look, you're going to face sanctions if things are not improving. And look, the military is also blamed and accused for the Rohingya refugee crisis. So there's a lot more at stake at the moment. It is not an easy task for them to let it slide. But the military's been cleared. They've released a statement saying we're here for a year and we need to fix things.
Yeah. Well, as you said, the United States, they got involved, or Biden in particular. The United States, they threatened to reimpose sanctions on Myanmar's generals after they seized power in a coup and detained elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi, whose whereabouts remained kind of unknown on today, more than 24 hours after her arrest. Now, the UN Secretary Council was due to meet later on Tuesday, diplomats said, amid calls for a strong global response to the military's arrest of the Nobel Prize laureate and dozens of her political allies on dawn raids on Monday. But the coup followed a landslide win for Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy, or the NLD party, in November elections, which as a result, the military has refused to accept, citing allegations of fraud. Now, the army handed power to General Min Aung Hlaing and imposed a state of emergency for a year, crushing hopes the poverty-stricken country, also known as Burma, was on the path to stable democracy after decades of military meddling in politics. But now U.S. President Joe Biden said the coup was a direct assault on Myanmar's transition to democracy and the rule of law, and said his administration would be watching how other countries responded. He said in a statement, the United States removed sanctions on Burma over the past decade based on progress toward democracy. So the reversal of that progress will necessitate an immediate review of our sanction laws and authorities, followed by appropriate action. So he said we will work with our partners throughout the region and also the whole world to support the restoration of democracy and the rule of law, as well as to hold accountable those responsible for overturning Burma's democratic transition.
Yeah, and more of the condemnation on the international stage. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also, quote, strongly condemns the detention of Suu Kyi and other elected leaders as well. He also expressed concern about the seizure of all three branches of Myanmar's government. Guterres called on the military leadership to, quote, respect the will of the people of Myanmar and adhere to democratic norms. Now, the military, in its part, said that there were problems with the voter rolls and expressed frustrations with Myanmar's Union Election Commission, which had reported there was no evidence of voter fraud. And according to the commander-in-chief, he said the commission will be reconstituted. The military has also suppressed information flow within the country. There are reports from the Myanmar Times stating that internet services, phone lines, and TV channels were cut since Monday. Banks were also shut down, citing the disruptions. Now, Suu Kyi, 75, is currently being detained. She holds the official title of state counselor, but she's been Myanmar's de facto leader since 2016. And despite her party's dominance at the polls, she's barred from officially becoming president because of legal requirements that were set by the military. And when the military formally ended its rule in the face of democratic reforms in 2011, the military reestablished many of its powers in the country's new constitution as well. So for many years, there were worries that the military's grip on power was sort of incoming, and something like this was going to happen as well. The coup also comes at a really bad time for Myanmar. The country faces a lot of challenges at the moment. The COVID-19 pandemic is one. Multiple ethnic insurgencies have been emerging reportedly as well. And also the country's been dealing with accusations of committing war crimes and other human rights violations against the Rohingya minority as well. And Suu Kyi herself appeared before the International Court of Justice in The Hague in 2019 to defend Myanmar against a charge of genocide. An extremely alarming situation in the country.
Certainly is. Now, let's focus a little bit more on the domestic reaction, because for us across the globe, we can voice our opinion and say and have our own say. But what we're hearing from local observers is that the most common reaction from the Burmese people is anger. They feel deeply betrayed by the military and the USDP. This was reflected in other comments from the streets, although there have been supporters of the army out and about waving the flags in Yangon. They said that the couple of people who are, such as the development consultants quoted by international news agencies, saying that we had a lawful election. People voted for the one they preferred. We had no protection. We have no protection under the law now. Many people feared giving their names, as they said that they do not want the coup. They've seen many transitions in the country and were looking forward to a better future. But now this has opened the door to a very, very different future, as they fear the millions will now be descended into poverty should this be in place. Now, what the military has said, 24 ministers and deputies have been removed, 11 replacements have been named, including in finance, health and interior, as well as foreign affairs. They come in with a proper team at the moment. They're not in for a joke here. And they said that the curfew is now reportedly in effect from 8 p.m. local time until 6 in the morning. So things are having a bit of a tight grip over in the country. Well, stay with us on the Morning Majlis. I'm sure this is going to be a very a hot topic of the week. There will be more reactions, more sanctions being imposed, and more global attention for it. And it is very, very likely that it is going to be to blow out of proportion into protests. And if things do escalate, we're only hoping that it doesn't end up in a lot of violence, because that will mean a very, very critical situation for that country. Especially in the COVID-19 situation, is something that it should be best avoided. Well, time now for us to take a bit of a break, and when we do come back, we're celebrating and looking forward to our big event. It is the Exposure Photography Festival, and something that we're all excited for. And Aisha Al-Mazmi had a very engaging press conference yesterday, as she spoke to a number of people about the developments surrounding the Exposure Photography Festival. And one key big takeaway from this conversation was that all photojournalists or photographers were also frontline workers, because they had been capturing the pandemic, and we saw that here in the United Arab Emirates for sure. Well, stay with us on the Morning Majlis. We'll be right back after a bit of a short break, and we'll continue the discussions from there on. This is the Morning Majlis on Pulse 95.
Pulse 95. Between local lines. Notes from the Emirate.
Yes, it's all about what's happening here in Sharjah, especially from the 10th till the 13th of February at the Expo Center Sharjah. The 5th Annual Exposure 2021 International Photography Festival is bringing to Sharjah some of the most inspiring images from across the world, with over 1,500 photos by 400 international photographers. 51 of the world's best photographers whose works will be part and exhibited at the Exposure 2021 are flying in for the 4-day festival. And we're going to see 54 exhibitions, 21 public seminars and inspiring discussions, 14 workshops delivered by industry leaders, 8 focus groups, and 14 expert-led portfolio reviews. The festival will play its role of being the biggest platform for hands-on learning and training in visual arts in the UAE and the region as well, once again this year. So the festival will definitely honor the emerging as well as renowned photography talents throughout its 3 rewards as well. So to talk more about this, our very own Aisha Al-Mazmi was there yesterday at the press conference that was held at the House of Wisdom, and she spoke with His Excellency Sheikh Sultan bin Ahmed Al Qasimi about the importance of exposure, this festival, and the plans for this year.
Yes, let's quickly go into this conversation between His Excellency Sheikh Sultan bin Ahmed Al Qasimi, Chairman of Sharjah Media Council, along with Aisha Al Mazmi, as they discussed what's to expect during this year's festival, despite the pandemic.
So this year we have a photography event in a pandemic. Why?
I think photography survived everything, even the pandemic. I think being in this pandemic is a proof that photography lives, and we think that exposure should continue whether there's a pandemic or not. But I think that photography is our way of saying that they were in the front lines as well. Photographs were seen by millions, telling us the story of this pandemic. So the photographers were in the front lines as well. I think also for those who were isolated in their homes and they lost the ability to travel, I think photographs were their tickets to travel outside of their homes. People were looking at different photos of different countries, of different places to be. So I think it is important that we continue this festival and this exhibition through this pandemic, because it's a proof that photography lives in any kind of event.
What can we expect out of Exposure 2021?
I think we can expect a lot. We have a lot of photographers internationally coming to this event. Like I said, we started with the first round of festival started with about 500 pictures. This year we're seeing over 1,500 pictures in exposure. So I think we'll see a lot this year. We're having a lot of events. We have a lot of workshops as usual. We have a lot of talks as well. I think this is just a festival that repeats itself but gets better every time. We did announce that we will be having a new type of award for the photojournalists. We are focusing this time at the person who took the picture rather than I would say the newspaper that printed that picture or the company that owns the right to that picture. So we are looking at the person who took the picture itself, the photojournalist who took the picture. We'll be having an award for such journalists.
And as a photographer or a photography enthusiast, what do you suggest people check out at Exposure 2021?
We have a lot of genres in this festival. We have a lot of things that we focus on. So I would suggest that if someone loves one kind of photography, for example, if someone loves portraits, they have a chance to look at another genre as well. So it's an opportunity for everyone to try something new. We have a lot of photographers internationally, professional photographers who attend workshops of other photographers in different genres. So I think it's learning never stops, and it's an opportunity for everyone to expand their minds and try to find something new that they can add to their portfolio. Even if they stick to the same genre that they love, you'll always see something new, someone who tried something that worked for them and might work for someone else. So this is an opportunity for everyone to get more out of exposure.
Really is a great event for us to go down, and we normally do a live event and a live OB from it, so we're looking forward to attending this time round again and checking it out. Have you guys had any fond memories of the Exposure Festival?
Just a lot of great pictures and talking to the artists as well, especially the wildlife photographers. I think they had a really good presence last year, and looking forward to seeing them again this year.
I think for me is catching up with people. I find it more of a social event as well.
Did it happen in September last year?
I think it did, yes.
I think because it was like around my birthday. That's what I remember.
No.
Yeah, I went on my birthday. And I went
Exposure.
it was the first time I saw Exposure was on my birthday.
Very good.
So I celebrated there.
Well, something to certainly look forward to indeed. And we will be back again after the world of news headlines. Up next, we have the sports updates emerging from across the globe. Hani Balkis will keep us posted. And then we shall return back here on the Morning Majlis.
Join the conversation with the Morning Majlis. Pulse 95.
Well, after traversing hundreds of millions of kilometers, the UAE's inaugural spacecraft, the Hope probe, is just days away from reaching Mars. But the mission's positive impact at home has already made it a success, according to the leadership who are behind the project. Now, currently traveling through space at approximately 120,000 kilometers per hour, the Hope probe will enter the orbit of Mars on February 9th. That's going to make the UAE just the fifth nation ever to reach the red planet. This is a critically important milestone, according to project manager at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, Umran Sharaf. He said that in a webinar held yesterday by the Emirates Society and attended by media. He said, but this project wasn't just about reaching Mars. Science and data is extremely important and one of the main drivers of this mission, but there's much more to it than just that.
Absolutely, and this is all about the UAE's development, particularly in the tech and science sectors. Said the UAE's Mars mission, quote, aimed to create disruptive change and a positive impact at home and to inspire a shift in the priorities of the Emirati youth. He said the project is already acting as a catalyst in Emirati society and has triggered and supported the creation of an advanced science sector here in the country. The build it, don't buy it philosophy behind the mission has been instrumental in developing confidence in the UAE's science, tech, and research sectors, he said. Sara Al-Amri, the UAE's Minister of State for Advanced Sciences, also spoke on the importance of this mission.
Yep, it is a very, very important mission for the United Arab Emirates. Not only just to have a feather on the cap that they've reached the Mars, but it just goes to show that impossible is nothing. You know, we've got such an important exploration that's going to benefit the global research industry as well, and it is going to be orbiting Mars for quite some time to gather the important data to understand whether life can exist there as well. So that's one thing that is part of this, and this is since day one of the project. The direction that we've received from the government has been to share data from this mission openly with everyone and with no restrictions. We've always had the intention of being open with the data collected by this mission. That's according to the heads of this science program, and we're really excited for this. Because it is a very critically important milestone. It is coinciding with the 50-year anniversary of the country in the year 2021. And we also asked you this question, in fact. Where can you travel to where it is going to be very safe, away from coronavirus, and an ideal destination for you to go to? And the answer?
Cook Islands, maybe.
Cook Islands?
Wow, how'd you come up with that?
It's really beautiful, and I don't think there's corona there.
Yeah, like one of those islands.
Yeah.
I was going to say and be like...
Maldives.
Omar will say say space.
Yeah, I knew you were leading up to that.
Because SpaceX has announced it will launch the first mission to space with an all-civilian crew.
Civilians?
All civilians.
No way.
And members of the public have been invited to enter a draw for one of the seats in the spacecraft. There's a 4-person mission, will be commanded by Jared Isaacman, a tech entrepreneur and a pilot on the side. Isaacman is the founder and CEO of Shift4 Payments, and they've got one final seat that people can actually enter a draw for.
Yeah, I take it that unless you enter via draw, the seats are very expensive, right?
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
You have to be really rich to go up there.
What is it, like $200,000 to... I remember we talked about this before.
Yeah.
Space tourism.
Yeah. I think it will... If in order for you to go, you have to pay like $200,000 or something.
Okay.
Remember once we talked about this, but a long time ago.
That's all right. $200,000?
Pocket change.
Yeah, pocket change.
And we even talked about this. We said, oh, this is pocket change. Khalas, Abdul Karim, you can go.
I can go, no problems. So that could be a fantastic little trip for all of us who fancy going and being away from the COVID-19 situation, because for the time being it is not going anywhere. It is still there, and we have to take the necessary precautions. But yes, the answer to this is lots of people came back with their responses saying lots of safe countries to visit, but Cook Islands was what Rania suggested. Philippines is opening its borders very soon as well, and for us, space. It's the best place. Stay with us on the Morning Majlis. We shall return right after the news headlines, and we'll continue the discussions from there on. And do text us on 4215.
Join the conversation with the Morning Majlis. Pulse 95.
Yes, you can join the conversation. Text us at 4215. We're talking about India's budget. Yesterday, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has presented the union budget of the year 2021 till 2022 in Parliament. And in significant changes to the taxation process, Sitharaman announced the scrapping of income tax for senior citizens under certain conditions, new rules for removal of double taxation for NRIs, and also a reduction in the time period of tax assessments, among other measures. Startups will now get an extension in their tax holiday for an additional year. And other things also took place. For example, Sitaraman also announced that the advanced tax liability on dividend income shall arise after declaration of payment of dividend. Now, at the conclusion of her speech, Sensex, which is or refers to India's benchmark stock index, it was at 47,451.62. That's up 1,165.85 points. In her speech, also Sitaraman announced that India's fiscal deficit is set to jump to 9.5% of gross domestic product in the years 2020 until 2021, as per revised estimates. Now, this is a sharply higher than 3.5% of GDP that was projected in the budget estimates. Now, a slump in government revenues amid the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a sharp rise in deficit and market borrowing, obviously.
Yeah, big expectations for India's much-awaited annual budget, and it comes at a time where COVID-19 has ravaged India, shrunk its GDP, and sent unemployment soaring, adding to the distress of the banking sector that was already in crisis before COVID-19 began. But Finance Minister Sitaraman said the budget aims to spend big in order to boost growth. And some of the key takeaways here is a big boost for healthcare spending. At just over $30 billion, India's overall health budget has now more than doubled. This is a massive boost for India's health sector, which has long been underfunded, receiving just about 1.3% of the GDP before. More than $8.5 billion have also been earmarked to upgrade healthcare infrastructure at the primary, secondary, and tertiary level over a period of 6 years. And yes, infrastructure. That's going to be a big word here, as well as a new development finance institution with a starting capital of $2.7 billion will be set up in order to fund large-scale infrastructure projects in India. This is expected to kickstart spending and offer some relief to banks, which are reeling from a mountain of debt as well. Also in the works is an asset reconstruction and management company, or a quote-unquote bad bank, that will take on unpaid debt from existing banks to free up their lending capacity. So, pretty ambitious and big budget for India.
Massive big budget for sure. It's changing its role, as a lot of analysts describe it, as from being a creator to being a facilitator for the Indian state or the federal government. And some people call it the COVID-19 vaccine for India. Is because of if you look at the numbers, India was one of the top 5 countries with the figures of the active cases, figures of deaths as well, was quite alarming in India over the course of the last few months. Now, experts are predicting a sharp rebound in India's economy, which is now projected to contract 7.7% in the current fiscal year, but grow at 11% levels in 2021-22, making it among the fastest growing economies in the world. The sharp rebound comes from a much lower base, given that GDP entered the negative zone in 2020 to 2021. The budget will also be closely followed by the Reserve Bank of India's rate decision this Friday. Overall, the reform announcements are positive, and the enhanced focus on capital expenditure is welcome, according to an analyst quoted by international media. And global ratings agencies S&P, Moody's and Fitch currently have the lowest investment grade rating on India. Just a notch above junk is what they call it as. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens next when it comes to the Indian budget. Up next, we'll take a bit of a break right now, and then we'll shift our focus in terms of what Sharjah is doing to celebrate the month of February as an inclusive education month. What's going on? All of this will be discussed right here on The Morning Majlis.
If you liked this episode of The Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.
Bubbles.